Somewhere beneath a marsh in eastern North America, in complete darkness, there's an animal making life-or-death decisions faster than anything else with a backbone on this planet. It's blind, it's smaller than your fist, and it looks, frankly, ridiculous, like someone glued a squid to the tip of a rat. But that ridiculous-looking nose is attached to one of the fastest decision-making brains in the animal kingdom, faster than a cheetah's reflexes, faster than a boxer's punch reaction, faster, in fact, than your own eyes can move. Welcome back to WildGenome. Today we're diving into the murky tunnels of the star-nosed mole. And by the end of this video, you're going to look at fast thinking completely differently. Let's start with the number that made scientists' jaws drop. 8 milliseconds. That's how long it takes a star-nosed mole to decide whether something it just touched is food, or not worth bothering with. 8 thousandths of a second. For comparison, it takes the average human somewhere between 30 and 60 milliseconds. Just to move your eyes to look at something. This mole is deciding whether to eat an entire meal in less time than it takes you to glance sideways. So how does a blind, burrowing mammal outpace one of the fastest reflexes in the human body? To answer that, we need to look at the strange, almost alien structure sitting at the center of its face. The star-nosed mole gets its name from exactly what you'd expect. A fleshy pink, star-shaped organ made of 22 individual tentacle-like appendages, called rays, radiating out from its nostrils. If you've never seen one, it looks less like a nose and more like a tiny, writhing sea anemone got attached to a rodent. And here's the part that matters. This isn't just a weird decoration. It's arguably the most sensitive touch organ possessed by any mammal on Earth. Each of those 22 rays is covered in thousands of microscopic touch receptors called Eimer's organs, tiny dome-shaped sensors originally discovered in ordinary moles, but supercharged in this species. Altogether, the star-nosed mole's face carries roughly 25,000 of these receptors. To put that in perspective, that's more touch sensors packed into a face smaller than a grape than most mammals have across their entire bodies. Now here's where the story gets genuinely strange, because unlike almost every other sense organ we know of, the star isn't there to gather information slowly and carefully. It's built for pure, blistering speed. When a star-nosed mole is foraging through mud and waterlogged tunnels, it doesn't pause to inspect things. It taps, repeatedly, rapidly. Neuroscientist Kenneth Catania at Vanderbilt University spent years filming these animals with high-speed cameras, just to keep up with what was actually happening, because to the naked eye, it just looks like a blur. What Catania found was staggering. A foraging, star-nosed mole can touch between 10 and 13 separate objects every single second. Each individual touch lasts around 20 to 30 milliseconds, barely long enough to register as a moment to you or me. And when one of those rapid-fire touches lands on something that might be food, the mole doesn't stop to think it over. It commits in 8 milliseconds and either grabs it or moves on. From first contact to fully swallowed, the entire process, touch, identify, decide, strike, eat, takes an average of roughly 230 milliseconds. Under ideal conditions, it can happen in as little as 120 milliseconds. That's less than the blink of an eye. Multiple times over. Let's put this in a comparison that should genuinely unsettle you. The average human driver needs about 650 milliseconds to react and hit the brakes when a hazard suddenly appears on the road. That's considered a completely normal, healthy reaction time, the reflex we build entire driver safety systems around. The star-nosed mole isn't just faster than that. It's making a full identify and commit decision in roughly 1/5 the time it takes you to start braking your car. So why does an animal need to move this fast just to eat a worm? The answer comes down to a brutal mathematical problem, and it's one Catania and his team actually modeled directly. Star-nosed moles live almost entirely underground and underwater, tunneling through wetland mud in near-total darkness, hunting tiny prey like insect larvae and worm segments. Individually, these prey items are barely worth the calories it takes to catch them. A slow eater, spending even half a second per item, simply wouldn't get enough energy back to justify the effort. To make this lifestyle work at all, the mole had to evolve toward one single goal: process, decide, and eat as many tiny meals as physically possible, as fast as physically possible. Evolution's solution wasn't a bigger brain. It was a faster one, tuned to strip away everything except the bare minimum needed to answer one question: edible or not? Here's the detail that made Catania's research genuinely groundbreaking, though, because it wasn't just about the mole's speed. It was about what that speed revealed regarding a hard limit inside every mammal's nervous system, including ours. Nerve signals don't travel instantly. They move at a finite, measurable speed, limited by the physical properties of neurons themselves. When Catania and his team calculated how quickly a touch signal could realistically travel, from the mole's nose, through its nervous system, into its brain, get processed into a decision, and then travel back out again as a motor command, the number they landed on was almost identical to that 8-millisecond figure they observed. In other words, the star-nosed mole isn't just fast. It appears to be operating at, or extremely close to, the actual physical speed limit of a mammalian nervous system. That's not just an impressive adaptation. That's a mole living right up against the hard ceiling of what neurons, as a category of biological technology, are even capable of. And here's an interesting wrinkle in this story. A genuine detail scientists don't often mention, because it makes the mole seem a little less superhuman and a little more relatable. Because it's operating at the absolute edge of its own reaction speed, the star-nosed mole actually messes up constantly. Researchers observe the moles lunging in the wrong direction, missing prey, or grabbing at empty space again and again. Speed this extreme comes with a cost: accuracy. The mole isn't perfect. It's just fast enough that even with a high error rate, catching extra food faster than its competitors still wins overall. So why doesn't every animal evolve this kind of blistering reaction speed? If speed is this valuable, why aren't we all moving at mole speed? The honest answer is that speed like this comes at a steep cost elsewhere. A nervous system built purely for reflex has less room for reflection, planning, or complex reasoning. The star-nosed mole isn't outthinking you. It's not solving puzzles, planning ahead, or forming memories the way a crow or an octopus can. It's doing something far narrower. One single decision, executed at nearly the fastest speed biology allows. Humans, by contrast, traded raw reflex speed for something else entirely: the ability to plan, imagine, reason through complex problems, and think several steps ahead. Our brains are built for depth, not raw milliseconds. In a strange way, that trade-off says something almost poetic about how differently evolution can solve the same basic challenge: survive and eat enough to keep surviving. One species chose speed sharpened down to almost nothing else. Another chose depth, at the cost of ever being genuinely fast. Neither strategy is better. They're just built for entirely different problems. A cheetah doesn't need to philosophize about the gazelle it's chasing, and a human doesn't need to identify prey in 8 milliseconds when they can plan a hunt, build a tool, or simply walk to the grocery store instead. But there's something worth sitting with here. The next time you feel proud of quick reflexes, catching a falling glass, dodging a thrown ball, slamming the brakes just in time, remember that somewhere in a dark, muddy tunnel, there is a creature smaller than your hand, for which that entire moment would feel like slow motion. A blind mole, operating at the literal edge of what a mammalian nervous system can physically achieve, making and remaking that same lightning-fast decision thousands of times a day, just to survive. It's not thinking about it. It doesn't have time to. And somehow, that's exactly what makes it one of the most remarkable nervous systems on Earth. If this made you think differently about what fast really means, that's exactly what this channel is here for: finding the strange, brilliant biology hiding in animals most people would never look at twice. Subscribe to WildGenome, because next time, we're heading back into the ocean, to an animal whose entire body might be smarter than its brain. Until then, next time something moves fast enough to surprise you, remember, somewhere out there, something else just did it 5 times faster and never even noticed.